what happens is if people go into a trial believing the firepower on the prosecution is so strong, I mean, let's say on a scale of 1 to 100, it's a 95 that it's so strong, but it goes down to an 88.
Bill and Sade, accepting a plea agreement would mean that Sean Combs would have to admit to trafficking and force. And today he made it very clear that was not going to happen. Diddy maintained all along these encounters involved consenting adults and plans to take his chances that a jury agrees.
That helps the defense because everybody goes in thinking, wow, they're going to prove this, and they're going to prove this, and they're going to prove this, and all of a sudden, none of it's there. I think that actually helps the defense.
Music mogul Sean Diddy Combs back behind bars. A magistrate judge denying him bail, saying that there were no conditions that she could conceive of that would make her confident that he would appear again for other court appearances. The judge saying, my concern is this is a crime that happens behind closed doors.
The last hearing before Sean Combs' trial starts, when he walked into federal court today, he appeared to be looking for his family. They've pretty much been at all of the hearings that I've been to, but there was no presence of his sons or his mother or his sister who had previously been at those hearings.
Mr. Combs feels A, he's innocent, which is why he's not going to plead guilty. B, he's going to be truthful about this case because he wants to portray that to the people who have loved him his whole life. And I think he also feels an obligation to people in general. Maybe it's black people, maybe it's white people, maybe it's anybody who's ever felt aggrieved and targeted by the government. He feels an obligation to those people to say, you know what, maybe I can break the model. You know, maybe I can show the world that a black man can win, you know, in federal court. And I think he probably is the only person I know of who might be able to actually accomplish that.
At trial, Combs will ditch the jail garb and wear ordinary clothes. As his lawyers argue, the evidence shows consenting adults being intimate in their own way.
Do you still think that, because there is this public perception, that there are celebrity tapes involved in this case?
No.
Do you still think that there are minors involved in this case?
Mogul Sean Diddy Combs, currently at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. He's awaiting trial on charges including sexual assault and sex trafficking.
The courthouse this morning. But inside, a very different scene. Because today, Sean Diddy Combs made a move that could change everything. He was offered a deal, a chance to skip the trial, avoid the spotlight, and admit to wrongdoing behind closed doors. He said no, no deal. No compromise, no backing down. Instead, Diddy is rolling the dice on a federal trial that could last months and dig into more than 2 decades of headlines, rumors, and behind-the-scenes stories the public was never supposed to hear. And the stakes? Let's just say this isn't a tabloid situation anymore. This is a full-blown courtroom battle, where powerful attorneys, former friends, and former employees are all lining up to testify. This is about what happened at the parties, in the studios, on the jets, and in the offices of one of music's biggest icons.
A lawsuit filed against Sean Diddy Combs accuses the music performer and executive of rape, physical abuse, and sex trafficking. The singer Cassie says the incidents occurred throughout her 10-year relationship with Combs.
Federal prosecutors say it was more than bad behavior. Diddy's team says it was all blown out of proportion, and that every moment was between grown adults making their own choices. Now, it's up to a group of 12 strangers to decide what really went on. Outside the courthouse, chants of, "He's innocent," echo down the block. Inside, a man once worth hundreds of millions is staring down the biggest challenge of his life. This is day one of a trial that could redefine celebrity accountability, and no matter what side you're on, one thing is clear. Diddy's not settling, he's standing up, and now the whole world is watching. Let's get into how we got here. Before the headlines, before the lawsuits, before the courtroom silence, you have to understand the rise, because this trial isn't just about a man. It's about a brand, a blueprint, and a figure who shaped pop culture for nearly 3 decades. Sean Combs wasn't born with a silver spoon. He came up in Harlem, hustling from an early age.
Her suit was filed under a law that allows alleged sexual offense victims to file past the statute of limitations. Cassie says she wanted to speak out before that law expires next week.
A college dropout with big dreams, he landed an internship at Uptown Records and didn't just fetch coffee, he remade the sound of an era. Then, in 1993, he launched Bad Boy Records and everything changed. Biggie Smalls, Faith Evans, Yuz on Ikinchi Maze. The label wasn't just a music house, it was a movement. Flash, style, confidence. And at the center of it all, Diddy, producer, hype man, mogul in the making. Every time he shouted, take that," a new chart topper was born. Then came the expansion. Diddy didn't stop at music. He dropped clothing lines, launched Kia Rock Vodka, bought a stake in Revolt TV, and turned his image into a one-man business empire. He danced in his own music videos, starred in ads, and threw parties that became legend. For many, he wasn't just a businessman, he was the businessman. By the mid-2000s teens, Forbes was calling him one of hip-hop's richest names. Diddy was flying private, throwing yacht parties in Miami, rubbing shoulders with presidents and royalty. He renamed himself Love, started giving motivational speeches, and doubled down on his public legacy. But here's where the story shifts. Because while the world saw wealth, success, and non-stop celebration, others saw something else. They whispered about what happened behind the scenes, about people who weren't invited back, about stories that didn't make it to the glossy magazines.
Mr. Combs has denied all the allegations. For more, let's bring in entertainment attorney Dante Mills. So Dante, thanks for being with us. Cassie has signed with that label when she was just 19, and Sean Combs was 37. What's alleged to have happened after that?
Thank you for having me, Catherine. So in this lawsuit, I just wanted to be clear, this is a civil lawsuit.
For years, those whispers were just that, whispers. Now, they're evidence. And everything Diddy built, his music, his brands, his lifestyle, is being used to tell a very different story inside a federal courtroom. It's no longer about Billboard hits, it's about control, power, and what happens when the life you built is suddenly on trial. So how did the whispers turn into a full-blown federal case? Let's rewind to where the fire really started. Cassie's lawsuit, the hotel video, and a 17-page indictment that shocked the world. For years, the rumors swirled. Stories about parties that felt more like power trips, allegations buried under contracts. But everything shifted the day the tape surfaced. It was grainy hotel surveillance footage. No sound, no edits, just a timestamp, a hallway, and two people, Sean Diddy Combs and his then-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura. In the clip, you see a confrontation. You see movement that shocked the internet. Cassie being pulled, dragged, shoved inside a luxury hotel in Los Angeles. Within hours, the video exploded online. People who had once defended Diddy went silent. Others who had stayed silent.
Federal judge has denied Sean Diddy Combs' efforts to delay the start of his upcoming sex trafficking trial.
They started speaking out. But here's the twist. This video wasn't leaked by some tabloid. It was submitted as evidence. And in pre-trial hearings, Diddy's legal team fought hard to keep it out. They argued it was prejudicial, out of context, unfair. The judge disagreed. The video is now official. Jurors will see it, frame by frame. And here's why that matters. Cassie isn't just a former partner. She's the key witness in a case that now includes 4 accusers. Her lawsuit, filed in late 2023, was the spark that reignited everything. Old allegations, new investigations, and now a massive federal case built on patterns of control and manipulation. Prosecutors say this clip supports a broader narrative. That what happened in that hallway was not a one-time moment, but part of a long chain of incidents meant to silence and control people close to Diddy. Cassie is expected to testify in person. The video will be played in court. And whatever you think happened that night, one thing's for sure. This isn't just a celebrity scandal anymore, it's evidence. And it's already reshaping the way fans, brands, and even jurors are looking at one of music's biggest icons. Because if this is the clip the public was allowed to see,
Get out of the way!
what else might be coming behind closed courtroom doors? On the surface, it looked like a regular legal document, just 17 pages long. But when that federal indictment dropped, it sent shockwaves through the entertainment world. The United States government wasn't just accusing Sean Diddy Combs of bad decisions. They were calling it a criminal operation, not a company, not a brand, but an enterprise. According to the filing, Diddy allegedly used his businesses, including his record label, clothing lines, a media network, and even his alcohol ventures. not just for profit, but to create a structure of influence that allowed him to manipulate people, move them across state lines, and keep them from speaking out. The legal term for this kind of organized structure? RICO, short for the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. Originally designed to take down crime syndicates, RICO lets prosecutors pull together different incidents from different years and treat them as parts of one big pattern, and that's exactly what the government claims this is. Inside the indictment, prosecutors list key accusations, using employees and insiders to keep people quiet, intimidating potential witnesses, coordinating travel and logistics through corporate resources, and facilitating encounters where personal choice was allegedly taken away. One of the most serious charges involves a person who was under the legal age of consent at the time of an alleged encounter. That detail alone raises the possibility of mandatory sentencing enhancements if convicted. And here's the thing, it's not just what Diddy's accused of doing himself, it's the network the government says he built to protect it.
We're getting a look at new video from last month's raid at Sean Diddy Combs' home in Holby Hills. The mother of one of his sons shared the video on Instagram, calling it an excessive use of force. The footage was edited and sped up.
That's what makes it RICO. That's what makes this case different. And that's what turns this from a personal scandal into a potential life sentence. Diddy's legal team? They're calling it overreach. They say the businesses were legit, the relationships were voluntary, and this is nothing more than a media-driven takedown. But the feds? They're saying this has been 20 years in the making. And now they've got messages, money trails, travel logs, and videos, ready to walk the jury through every piece. A few days before the trial, Diddy was offered a choice. Behind closed doors, away from the cameras, the government made their move. A plea deal, the kind of offer that lets high-profile defendants skip a long public trial in exchange for admitting to certain charges and accepting a sentence. Most celebrities in his shoes would have taken it. No cameras, no headlines, just damage control, legal spin, and a quiet path forward. But not Diddy. When the judge asked him directly if he was turning the deal down, he didn't hesitate. "Yes, I do, Your Honor." And just like that, the stage was set. No escape route. No second chances. He'll go head-to-head with the full weight of the federal government, in front of a jury, under oath, with everything on the record. So why say no? Diddy's team says it's simple. He believes he's innocent, he believes the accusations are false, the evidence misleading, and the witnesses motivated by attention or money. More than that, his lawyers say he wants to stand up not just for himself, but for others who've been targeted by what he calls an unfair system. But prosecutors saw it differently. They reportedly wanted him to admit to behavior that went beyond just poor judgment.
We also learned that they want to use text messages between Cassie Ventura and Diddy discussing the freak-offs. They are saying that these text messages are a strong piece of evidence because they are going to corroborate everything that Cassie Ventura says in her testimony against Diddy.
They wanted an admission that he used his influence and his resources to pressure people into silence. That was the line he wouldn't cross. By refusing the deal, Diddy is putting it all on the line. His career, his companies, his legacy, even his freedom. This isn't a gamble on lawyers, it's a gamble on public perception, on 12 strangers who will now decide whether he walks out of that courtroom a free man or doesn't walk out at all. And what makes this moment even more dramatic? The people closest to him, his family, his inner circle, weren't seen in court that day. No mother, no sons, no sister, just Diddy, flanked by lawyers, holding his ground in front of a judge. 12 jurors. That's all it takes to decide the future of Sean Diddy Combs. But when your case involves a global superstar, a media frenzy, and decades of controversy, picking those 12 becomes a trial in itself. Welcome to voir dire, the legal term for jury selection. And in this case, it's more like casting a blockbuster movie. Federal prosecutors and Diddy's defense team are reviewing nearly 200 citizens pulled from all across the Southern District of New York. Their job? To find 12 people who haven't already made up their minds and who can tune out the noise long enough to focus only on the evidence. Sounds simple? It's not. Because let's be real.
It provides direct evidence that Diddy used violence to force and coerce her to engage in these freak-offs. They are saying that this part is so important because Diddy's argument in this criminal trial is going to be that everything was consensual, but they are saying that these text messages are going to show something totally different.
Almost everyone's heard something about this case. The headlines, the clips, the rumors, the viral video. Social media isn't just a distraction, it's part of the narrative. That's why the court is asking each potential juror tough questions. Do you listen to hip-hop? Have you ever worked in entertainment? Do you follow celebrity trials online? Do you believe fame changes how justice works? The prosecution wants jurors who won't get starstruck, people who can cut through the glitz and zero in on the facts. The defense? They're looking for open-minded folks. People who won't judge a flashy lifestyle or make assumptions based on parties, fashion, or tabloid coverage. There's even been talk of sequestering the jury, keeping them isolated from the outside world during the trial to avoid leaks or outside influence. But that decision brings its own set of challenges: stress, logistics, and cost. Meanwhile, moderators on Reddit and Twitter are already deleting posts speculating about who's been picked, and some trial watchers are worried. Can anyone truly be impartial in a case this big? Because this isn't just about legal charges, it's about cultural memory. About whether a man who shaped music, branding, and lifestyle for an entire generation can get a fair shot from people who grew up watching him rise and fall. The courtroom is quiet, the jury is seated, and now it begins.
And as Les Trent reports, the music mogul who once traveled by private jet to all those mansions is now in a jail that is notorious for its bad living conditions.
The prosecution isn't just trying to prove a few bad choices. They're out to show a pattern. A long-running strategy that used music, money, and status to gain power over people and keep them silent. And they've spent months preparing their case. Their goal? To take jurors on a journey from 2003 recording studios to 2023 courtrooms, from late-night texts and private jets to NDA agreements and quiet settlements. They'll open with Cassie Ventura, the most recognizable name in the case. She'll speak in her own name, not anonymously. She'll share how her professional dreams as a young singer led to a personal relationship, and later, to situations that left her feeling isolated, confused, and powerless. To support her story, prosecutors will present digital evidence, time-stamped messages, travel records, studio calendars, security logs, video stills linked to specific dates and places. They're building what they call a timeline of intent. Not just a single mistake, but a consistent pattern built on influence and fear. Next, 3 additional women, identified as victims 2, 3, and 4, will share their own experiences. One says she woke up in a strange place after a party. Another says she was told to hand over her phone and smile for cameras at an LA compound.
P. Diddy ringing in the new year with a jailhouse meltdown, at least according to some new reports. All this comes as the disgraced singer spends his first holiday season behind bars.
One claims she was underage during a trip to the Caribbean. Each story is unique, but prosecutors believe the pattern is clear. Promises of opportunity, followed by uncomfortable encounters, often blurred by luxury, lights, and loyalty. They've also lined up 8 support witnesses: a digital forensics expert to explain encrypted files, a travel coordinator who booked code-named flights, a studio engineer who says footage was kept to maintain control, a financial investigator tracking payouts right after complaints surfaced. It's a serious, carefully structured case. And if the jury believes this pattern was real, it could meet the requirements for the most serious charge, racketeering. But the defense has a strategy too, and they're about to push back, hard. If the prosecution is trying to paint a clear picture of manipulation and control, Diddy's legal team is aiming to rip that picture apart, frame by frame. Their strategy? Undermine the story. Question the timeline, discredit the evidence, and above all, prove that what looked like wrongdoing was actually consensual adult behavior between people who made their own choices. Let's start with the videos. The defense has brought in digital imaging experts who say the key clips, like the hotel footage, were edited. They point to sudden lighting changes, frame skips, and mismatched timestamps. Their claim? These aren't raw clips. They've been spliced, trimmed, and presented without full context. Then, there are the messages. Diddy's attorneys say many of the texts being used as evidence were cherry-picked. They argue that affectionate messages, jokes, and even career support were left out. Messages that, they say, show genuine connections, not coercion. They'll also bring up non-disclosure agreements, signed by several of the accusers years ago. To the prosecution, those NDAs were hush money. To the defense,
by now you're well aware that 55-year-old Sean Combs, also known as P. Diddy, is being held at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. He's facing federal charges of racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion.
They were standard legal protection in the entertainment world. And what about the perks? Private jets, designer gifts, luxury suites. The defense argues these weren't tools of pressure, but signs of mutual relationships where everyone involved benefited and understood the dynamic. They're also expected to call character witnesses, people who attended the parties, worked at the studios, traveled with the crew, and who'll say, under oath, that what happened was part of a high-profile lifestyle, not a crime. Their message to the jury? Don't fall for headlines. Don't jump to conclusions. Look at the facts. Look at the choices. And don't confuse fame with guilt. Because in a world where every story gets amplified, every look gets replayed, and every mistake becomes a meme, the defense says this entire case is the result of distortion, not evidence. The battle is fully underway. While courtroom doors remain closed to cameras, the outside world is watching and reacting in real time. And for Sean Diddy Combs, the fallout started long before the jury ever heard a single word. Let's talk numbers. According to multiple analytics trackers, streams of classic bad boy tracks dropped over 12% between January and April.
The charges came down in September when a grand jury indicted Diddy, half a year after those federal raids were first performed on his homes.
2 satellite radio channels quietly pulled Diddy's music from rotation. And DJs across the country? Some now fade his songs after 30 seconds, just enough to spark nostalgia, without sparking backlash. Brand partnerships have all but vanished. Liquor companies once proud to be aligned with Diddy's image are now in full retreat. A petition urging retailers to drop his branded vodka reached over 2 million signatures in just 1 week. Corporate boards aren't waiting for a verdict. They're pulling ads, freezing royalty streams, and rewriting future contracts. This isn't just public opinion. It's a business reckoning, and the ripple effect is massive. Educators are turning the case into classroom discussions. From 7th grade civics classes to Ivy League law seminars, students are tracking daily court updates and debating everything from legal rights to artist accountability. Streaming platforms and music publishers are rethinking how they showcase artists under legal fire. Some are considering new advisory labels, warning listeners when a song comes from someone under investigation. Behind the scenes, record label execs are scrambling. Insurers now require new clauses in artist deals. Immediate suspension if serious charges are filed, royalty holds during criminal investigations, morality reviews, before approving tour support. It's a full-scale recalibration, because what's on trial isn't just one man. It's the legacy of an entire era in hip-hop. The luxury, the power, the loyalty, the silence. And now that silence is breaking, brand by brand, song by song, dollar by dollar, whether Diddy walks out of court guilty or not, his empire will never look the same again.
Since he was booked, Diddy has made several bids for bail, hoping to get back to one of those homes or an apartment on New York's Upper East Side.
And now, we wait. 12 jurors, dozens of witnesses, 2 decades of claims, contracts, and questions. Sean Diddy Combs, once the blueprint for hip-hop success, now waits in a detention cell, reviewing court transcripts and meeting with lawyers while the world watches. If the jury finds him guilty on the most serious charges, he could face up to 40 years. Some legal analysts say even a split verdict, guilty on a few, not all, could still put him behind bars for decades. But if he walks, the legal battle might be over. But public opinion? That's a whole different trial. Because in today's world, innocence in court doesn't always mean redemption in culture. Fans are divided, brands are cautious, and the industry he helped build is rewriting its rules in real time. No matter what the final verdict says, this case has already made one thing clear: power doesn't protect like it used to. From the studio to the courtroom, from platinum records to subpoenas, Diddy's legacy now sits in the hands of 12 everyday people. And whatever they decide, the echoes will be felt far beyond the courtroom, in boardrooms, playlists, headlines, and history books. This isn't just about guilt or innocence, it's about what comes next.